Welcome to the 4Q podcast. My name is Sheena Shui. I have a Bachelor of Psychology, Masters of Counselling, and Masters of Social Work. My aim is to normalise rather than pathologise life. And in this podcast, we talk all things therapy, women's mental health, leadership, and business. So if you're ready to learn some tips, tricks, and hear some amazing stories to really amplify your life and your business, let's get into it. Welcome again to the 4Q podcast. What is the quickest and easiest way or thing you could do for anxiety, ADHD, or distractibility? Just that constant feeling of just rattledness, right? That inability to focus sometimes. That is really common with both people who are struggling with anxiety or ADHD or just being stuck in survival mode. Now, before I get to it, I just want to go back and get you to think about, in our childhood, do you remember things feeling slower? Or do you remember things just seeming more simple? Now, don't get me wrong, we had far less responsibility than what we have, but a really big part of this is that we weren't focused on the future or focused on the past. We were so present, right? So just think back to your childhood and, what the summers were like, right? Where you're just exploring and playing and being in the moment and spending time with family and all the memories that you had. And what made that seem so lovable and warm and enjoyable and good was you were in the moment and super, super present. Now, we need to hold on to that. We need to bring that back into our day-to-day lives. And one of the easiest things you can do for your mental health is turn off notifications. Now, before you turn off this podcast and switch away and go, I ain't doing that. I have a business, I've got kids, blah, blah, blah. I have heard every excuse under the sun as to why people don't want to do this, okay? So I get it. I get that you're going to feel resistance about turning notifications off on your phone. But honestly, it is the quickest and easiest thing you could do for your mental health. So if I was to turn around and say, hey, there's this one thing that you could do that's going to reduce your likelihood of getting addicted to drugs or alcohol. It's going to reduce your cortisol and stress levels that not only damage your organs, they cause aging, they damage your brain so that you don't have sort of what we call long neurons that help you connect the different parts of your brain so that you can think more clearly and fast and get to the point and all of that. If I could present it in that way, if I could present something that's going to reduce your anxiety significantly, improve your focus significantly. If you didn't know that it was turning off your notifications on your phone, I'm sure you would leaning a lot into it. Now, there is this resistance I find that comes up for people around turning notifications off. And so what I mean by notifications is literally all notifications except text messages and your phone, like phone calls. And even then, I do think that there's times where you should just switch your phone off for an hour or a couple of hours completely so that you don't have that temptation of constantly checking. So they say that on average, for every distraction that you have, so let's say you're doing a task, you're typing something, or in the middle of a session with someone, or whatever it might be, and then you get a notification on your phone from Instagram or Facebook or even Facebook Messenger or an email or whatever it might be, it's going to take you 15 minutes on average. So sometimes it's going to take longer to get back to the level of your previous state before the distraction. And so I really encourage you to try doing this for yourself, even for a short amount of time. Try it for a day, a couple of days, knowing that you're going to feel discomfort. So a lot of the time I work with a lot of people in corporate, in their own businesses, mums even, who go, I need to keep up to date with this, or I need to do this, or, I need to reply to messages. I literally work in mental health, right? So I literally work with people who are dealing with suicidal ideation, who are dealing with very severe issues, okay? And I only have my phone and my text messages on. And even then, I have my phone on silent a lot of the time because it's not urgent for me to reply to phone and text messages. And best I can, when I have finished tasks, that is when I will check my emails and reply to emails, or check Instagram and reply to DMs, or whatever it might be. And I would really encourage you to think about doing that for yourself too. So going into your phone settings, turning your notifications off, and just sitting with how much more present you are without that distractibility, how much more simple life feels, how much less distracted you are. Start with a day. See how uncomfortable that feels, and know that day one is going to be the most uncomfortable it feels. And then over time, you're going to get used to it. And I really, I would love to say, try this for a week, try this for a month. But I know for some of you, that already is an overwhelming thought, because you may not realize it, but you're addicted to these devices. We all are. They're wired for addiction. And whether you've read the book Stolen Focus yet or not, I really encourage you to read that book, because it just talks about how our phones are wired for us to be addicted to them and constantly using them. Social media is wired so that we're constantly engaging and interacting and on it. And that's because it's profitable for them to be wired that way. It is not profitable for us to be present and in the moment, and to value time with our friends and our family and even our clients, right? If you work in a people-facing industry or a service industry, or even if just with your co-workers, if you're in corporate, are you really present with them? Or are you constantly checking your phone when you're with each other? When you go to lunch for someone, is your phone in your bag or on the table? Because when you leave your phone on the table and you're constantly, getting notifications when you're with someone, on an unconscious level, I don't think this is intentional, but on an unconscious level, it says, I'm not present here. This isn't valuable to me. Whatever's going on in my phone is more valuable. And so I really want you to think about how these notifications are interacting with you. I could go on about all the studies of how difficult this is on your brain. And, I'm not saying don't use your phone, particularly when you are feeling really stressed, right? Like when we're having experiences of burnout, it is very normal to scroll for hours and, just go between different apps. That's different to what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is throughout the day, constantly feeling pulled by your device because somebody liked a photo, somebody commented on a photo, somebody replied to an email, a banking interaction happened, so you get notifications from the bank. This happened, this happened, this happened. Do you absolutely need to know that information, or can it wait until your lunch break? Can it wait until a designated time when you've finished your task to check those things? Okay, so I'm not saying don't scroll your phone or anything like that. Do it. That can be a really good way to actually regulate yourself. What I'm actually getting at is the constant at you, right? So people can have hundreds of notifications a day, and every single time you get a notification, you get a dopamine hit. You get a rush of endorphins and all that stuff, and that's addictive, right? Same thing happens with nicotine, cocaine, all of those amphetamines, is that it's addiction. And so this is why if you get used to getting hundreds of buzzers a day and interacting with so many of them, it leaves you super susceptible to other forms of addiction like smoking, cocaine use, amphetamine use, because you're chasing that dopamine rush. And so often when we do quit something like notifications, and yes, I use the word quit, you can feel a bit low until you get used to the pace of slowing down. So it really is sucking up so much useful emotive energy that you could be using for the more important parts of life, which is being present. That is where joy occurs. Joy does not occur worrying about tomorrow, planning ahead, all of those things. It does not come from keeping up to date with all the notifications. Joy comes from being present in focusing on the task you have in front of you, the person you've got in front of you, the child, the friend, the family member in front of you, without all these constant distractions. So even though I know there might be hesitance or resistance, and I know that you know this, this is out there. It's not like it's not common knowledge, but it's worth the reminder. And the reason that I'm bringing it up in this episode today is I've actually had so many clients where I've been on just phone and just text messages with my phone on silent for so long now that I've often forget that people have 20 something notifications every hour when they don't turn their notifications on. And so when I'm working with clients and we're working on their anxiety and their focus and their distractibility and their constant fight or flight mode being on, this is something that I sometimes forget to mention, is that, hey, how can you possibly be in your window of tolerance? How could you possibly be in a good, calm, collected zone, a zone where you have complete clarity over your life, when you're constantly distracted, constantly your attention's pulled away, constantly you're in another place because you're getting notified about all these other things that you don't need to be focusing on right now? So this is why I bring it up today, because again, it's something that is so simple, but is so often overlooked. And is it going to heal your childhood trauma that's maybe driving some of your stuff? No. Is it going to change your brain the way it's wired instantly? No. But it will change your brain chemistry. And so as you do this, expect a little lull. So just like when you quit caffeine, cocaine, nicotine, you might feel a lull afterwards. And that's actually a really normal experience. And if you can survive that lull and get out on the other side of the valley of despair, as we call it, you're going to be so much better. I promise. I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it, but it's getting to that place. So let me know your thoughts on this sort of short and sharp and quick episode on this topic. And of course, as always, I'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this episode, or if you had an insightful moment, please let me know. The best place I'm hanging out is at Instagram at Sheena Holistic Therapist, or on TikTok now as well. I'm sort of navigating that whole world. It's the wild west of the internet, right? So I've always been a bit hesitant about going there, but I'm there now. So please, I love hearing from you. And of course, if you want to work together, you know that there's that option that's always on the cards. All right, you have a wonderful week, a wonderful day, and I will see you on the next episode of the 4Q podcast. Bye for now.